Hello friends, welcome to our channel AGRI.CO'S World. In this video, we are going to discuss some of the important MCQs from general genetics. These questions are useful for JRF, SRF and other competitive exams related to agriculture. Now let's move on into our first question. Mendel did his experiments in which of the following plant? Mendel did his experiments in garden pea, that is Pisum sativum. Along with that, he also done experiments in rajma and hieracium and also in the honeybee. Mendel experiments were published in which paper? Mendel's experiments were published in Experiments on Plant Hybridization and it is a paper. Which of the following is not the contrasting trait on which Mendel worked? From the given options, flower color is not the trait on which Mendel worked. Mendel worked on 7 pairs of contrasting characters. They are the seed shape, coat color, cotyledon color, pod shape, flower position and the plant height. The 7 contrasting traits selected by Mendel are present on how many chromosomes? The 7 contrasting traits selected by Mendel are present on 4 chromosomes. They are 1, 4, 5 and 7. A cross between F1 and one of its parents is called. When coming to the cross between F1 and one of its parents, it is a back cross. But when it is a cross between F1 and the recessive parent, it is a test cross. The genotypic ratio of monohybrid crosses. The genotypic ratio of the monohybrid cross is 1:2:1, whereas the phenotypic ratio is 3:1. The phenotypic ratio of trihybrid cross is, the phenotypic ratio of trihybrid cross is 27:9:9:9:9, 3:3:3:1. Moving on to the next question. If the phenotypic effect of the heterozygote lies in midway between the two homozygotes, it is called as incomplete dominance. In codominance, all the alleles of the gene contribute equally to the phenotype of the heterozygote. When coming to the overdominance, it is the superiority or inferiority of the heterozygote over either of the homozygote parents. Appearance of the ancestral traits in offsprings is called. The appearance of the ancestral traits in the offsprings is called as atavism and it is also known as reversion. If progeny survives only in the heterozygous condition but not in the homozygous state, it is called as. When the progeny survives only in the heterozygous condition but not in the homozygous state, it is known as the balance lethal. And the balance lethal in Enothera was proposed by Renner. Coat color of rabbit is an example of. The coat color of a rabbit is an example for multiple alleles. What is multiple allele? The occurrence of more than 2 alleles for a single gene is called as a multiple allele. Usually a single gene have only 2 alleles, but if it is more than 2, then it is multiple allele. And the examples for the multiple alleles are the coat color of the rabbit and the self-incompatibility alleles in tobacco and ABO blood group system. Subvital gene causes the death of. The subvital gene causes the death of less than 90% of the individuals, but the semi-lethal gene causes the death of greater than 90% of the individuals, but the vital genes do not affect the individual. Which of the following is not the reason for Mendel's success in explaining the laws of inheritance? Here it is clearly mentioned that it is not the reasons for Mendel's success. Mendel has a sound background in mathematics. He has the habit of maintaining the records and he has selected the pea plant as it of short duration. But when we go to the third option, selecting pea plant as it is a cross-pollinated crop. He selected the pea plant because it is a self-pollinated crop. So option C is the wrong answer. Interaction between 2 or more genes involving more than 2 loci is called as. It is called as the epistasis, where the interaction is between the genes that involve 2 different loci. Dominance is a intragenic reaction, but epistasis is a intergeneric reaction. A group of genes which enhance or reduce the phenotypic effect produced by the major gene are called as. A group of genes which enhance or reduce the phenotypic effect produced by the major gene is called as a modifying gene. 2 dominant alleles have similar effect when they are separate but produce enhanced effect when they come together is called as which interaction? This is known as a polymeric interaction and it is mostly seen in the fruit shape of summer squash. Genes which permit the development of average phenotype or standard phenotype irrespective of the minor environment. So they are not affected by the environmental changes. That is known as developmental hemostasis and it is also known as canalization of development. The F2 phenotypic ratio of polymeric gene action is, the F2 phenotypic ratio of polymeric gene interaction is 9:6:1. Test-to-cross ratio in duplicate gene action is, the test-to-cross ratio in duplicate gene action is 3:1. The degree of expression of a penetrant gene is, the degree of expression of the penetrant gene is expressivity. Penetrance is calculated in which of the following? Penetrance is calculated in the percentages. A gene having more than one phenotypic effect is called, a gene which has more than one phenotypic effect is called as pleiotropism. The term epistasis was first used by which of the following scientists? The term epistasis was first used by Bateson. Linkage in maize was discovered by, the linkage in maize was discovered by Hutchinson, whereas the linkage in pea was discovered by Bateson and Puneet and linkage in Drosophila is discovered by Morgan. The tendency of two or more genes to remain together in the same chromosome during inheritance is called, that is, it is called as a linkage. Increase in distance between the genes shows which of the following? When there is an increase in the distance between the two genes, then it decreases the linkage. Genes which belong to the same linkage group are called as, the genes which belong to the same linkage group are known as synteny. Linkage is detected by which of the following? The linkage is detected by the test-to-cross, because when there is a linkage there will be a deviation from the test-to-cross ratio because there will be the higher frequency of the parental types. And when the test-to-cross is conducted, the genes which are present in linkage shows a deviation from 1:1:1:1 ratio. The term crossing over was coined by, the term crossing over was coined by Morgan and Kettle. The linkage of dominant allele with that of the recessive allele is known as, the linkage of a dominant allele with that of a recessive allele is repulsion, whereas the linkage of the dominant allele with that of a dominant allele is a coupling. Maximum number of linkage groups in an organism is equals to, the maximum number of linkage groups in an organism is equal to the haploid number of that individual. Drosophila male shows which of the type of linkage? The Drosophila male and female silk moth shows the complete linkage. That means crossing over does not occur at all. Whereas in incomplete linkage, some part of the crossing over occurs and it is shown in Drosophila female. Crossing over takes place in which stage? The crossing over takes place in 4-strand stage. In Drosophila, lowest recombination frequency is observed at which temperature? In Drosophila, the lowest recombination frequency is observed at 22 degrees centigrade. An increase or decrease in the 22 degrees centigrade will increase the frequency of the recombination in Drosophila. Genes near the centromere shows, the genes near the centromere shows the decreased crossing over. Cytological basis of crossing over in maize was given by, the cytological basis of crossing over in maize was given by Criggington and McClinton, whereas the cytological basis of crossing over in Drosophila is given by Kern-Stern. The maximum recombination frequency between genes if there is absence of linkage is, usually the frequency of recombination between genes lie from 0 to 50%, but the maximum recombination frequency between genes is 50%. Chiasma was first discovered by, chiasma is a cross-like configuration which is observed during the diplotin when the homologous chromosome begin to move away from each other, and the chiasma was first discovered by Janssens. Moving on to the next question. Chiasma formation is the cause of crossing over in which of the following theory? In classical theory, chiasma formation is the cause of crossing over, and the classical theory was proposed by the scientist Sharp. The map unit which measures the distance between two genetic markers is represented by, the map unit which measures the distance between two genetic markers is represented by centimorgon, And 1 centimorgon refers to 1% recombination between the two genetic markers. The centimorgon distance is valid up to. It is valid up to 20 centimorgons. In rice, 1 centimorgon is equal to. In rice, 1 centimorgon is equals to 0.27 MB, which is also equal to 270 kb. One crossing over reduces the chances of another crossing over in adjacent region. What is this termed as? If one crossing over reduces the chances of another crossing over in adjacent region, it is the positive interference. When one crossing over increases the chances of the another crossing over in adjacent region, it is the negative interference. The positive interference takes place in eukaryotes and prokaryotes, whereas the negative interference takes place in aspergillus and bacteriophages. Value of coefficient of coincidence for negative interference is. The value of coefficient of coincidence for negative interference is greater than 1. For positive interference, it is less than 1. For absence of interference, it is 1. For complete interference or absolute interference, it is 0. Which of the following ions reduces the recombination in Drosophila? The presence of calcium and magnesium ions reduces the recombination in Drosophila. Who discovered the sex-determining X chromosomes in insects? The sex-determining X chromosomes in insects were determined by Mcq'S, whereas the sex chromosomes of both male and female in humans were discovered by Wilson and Steves. Larvae of Boniella, when attached to proboscis of female, develop into. When the larvae of Boniella attach to the proboscis of female, they develop into the males. When they are free, they develop into the females. By removing which of the segment in the Y chromosome of Melandrium, the female is produced. By removing the male promoting region from the Y chromosome, the female is produced. If the first region is lost, it produces the bisexual plant. When the third region is lost, it produces the male sterile plant. In butterflies, which method is used for sex determination? In butterflies, ZWZZ system is used for sex determination. In honeybees, which of the following system is used for sex determination? In honeybees, diplohaploid system is used for sex determination. In genic balance system, sex is determined by. The genic balance system is proposed by Bridges and the sex is determined by X/A ratio. If X/A ratio is 0.33, it develops into. If the ratio is 0.33, it develops into super male. When the ratio is 1, it develops into female. When it is 0.5, it develops into male. When it is between 0.5 to 1, it develops into an intersex. When it is greater than 1.5, it develops into a super female, and less than 0.33, it develops into super male. Homozygous TRA gene in Drosophila develops into. When the transformer gene is present in heterozygous condition, there will not be any effect. But if it is present in homozygous condition, the diploid females will develop into sterile males. Individuals showing male phenotype in one part and female phenotype in another part of the body, then they are called as the gynandromorphs. Transformation from one sex to another is called as. The transformation of one sex to another is called as sex reversal, and it was first observed by the scientist Crew in the chickens. The type of inheritance followed when the phenotypic expression is different in different sexes. It is called as sex influence inheritance, and some of the examples are pattern baldness in human and horns development in the sheep. Milk production in cattle is an example of. Milk production in cattle is an example of sex-limited inheritance, and some of the other examples are breast development in women and beard development in man. An allele which is similar to its phenotypic expression of another independently occurring allele is called. It is known as an isoallele. Pattern baldness is an example of. Pattern baldness is an example of sex-influenced trait. For staying in tune with us, you can even join our WhatsApp group where the number is provided on the screen. Thank you friends. I hope you liked our video. If you like our video, please do like, share and subscribe to our channel AGRI.CO'S World for more content related to agriculture.